Hi, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours for Monday, September 17th. I am Crystal Stranahan, and I'm here so far with JP McLean, and we are going to be chatting about all kinds of interesting things today. Starting with, Joanne and I have just been chatting about selling direct from your website and how that can work and whether or not that will work. So, yeah, those are some questions we're going to try and address. And hopefully a couple more people show up too, and then we can pick their brains as well. But yeah, in the meantime, so yeah, maybe Joanne, can you give everybody just a bit of a recap about what it is you're trying to tackle at the moment, and then they'll have some context for this discussion.
Sure. I'm a member of the Alliance of Independent Authors and follow quite closely what's going on in indie land for authors such as myself. And right now there seems to be a push, not a push, but a move towards selling books yourself through your own website and kind of owning that part of your business, not leaving it entirely dependent on third-party distributors like Kobo or Amazon or whoever you're dealing with. And so I thought, as part of my big rebranding push, and my new website and all that, I would get a page up there and running where I might be able to sell both the physical copies of the books, like a signed copy, something extra that you can't get from Amazon, and or the digital copies of my books coming out. And so I started that process of figuring out how I might go about doing that. And I have zero tech skills, so a lot of it is completely over my head. But what I did learn was that there are a number of resources out there that you can use to get a shopping cart or a bookstore on your page. And then I got stymied. So I'm here looking for help and advice.
All right. So the tools you were looking at, you have a privately hosted WordPress website, right? And
yes,
Woocommerce.
By HostGator.
Yeah, and then Woocommerce.
I downloaded the Woocommerce.
Okay. And
then I learned.
Yeah.
I learned that Woocommerce integrates with Canada Post, which is wonderful, so that they use my postal code, and whoever is purchasing would put their postal code in and address, and then Canada Post will provide the shipping rates, because of course I wouldn't cover shipping. It would be the cost of the book plus shipping. So I was happy about the Canada Post integration. I also have a small business account with Canada Post, which doesn't cost any money to get. And so everything would, I believe, get a discount, at least 5% on the parcel rate anyway. And it also integrates, when I started looking at WooCommerce, the only payment method that you could have was PayPal. And I know a lot of the older folks, especially here on this island, don't have access to PayPal because the internet here is not terrific. And so having an alternative to PayPal was something I wanted to investigate and try to get on my site. And I have a Square account so that I can take credit cards when I'm selling the books. And it has an integration to Square. WooCommerce has an integration with Square. So I also downloaded Square's integration. I haven't got it up and running yet, but I did download it. So I've got Square to accept credit cards in addition to PayPal. I've got Canada Post to define the rates for me, so I don't have to look those up every single time. And it will also integrate with many email packages, or I'm not sure if you can call MailChimp an email package, but if you collect emails from your website, it integrates with that too, so that it will collect the people's email address with the proper disclaimers and such as you are making sales. And hopefully, I think the wisdom out there is that people are slowly getting used to purchasing online, and there may be more acceptance now than there was, say, 5 years ago or even 2 or 3 years ago for purchasing online, especially when they see a trusted PayPal or Square, because a lot of stores even use Square. So it's not an unknown quantity any longer.
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's probably 3 main challenges or issues that have to get addressed for anybody who's looking to sell direct. And one of them is sort of the security of it all. So if you are using a third-party service that has the payment processing, then that means you don't have to handle 100% of that through your website, because that's definitely one of the concerns is, what's required for a basic author website in terms of, security plugins and what your processes look like and all of that is quite different from when you're running an actual store from your site. So just being really aware of at what point is the data collected and who actually holds that data. So if it's Square that's doing the payment processing or PayPal that's doing the payment processing, then your website is not what's holding all of that information. So that's a really important distinction for people to be aware of. Or like Shopify, if you're using that, that's another good one. So there are options that are sort of like a middle ground. Is they're a little bit technical and a bit more involved than, just having your author site, but you're not actually 100% having an installed shopping cart in the sense that everything is happening inside of your site. So yeah, that security side is one. The postal stuff, which you've got a good handle on, is awesome. Speaking from experience, as we did this with Gumboot Books, our kids book publishing company, for like a decade. We shipped direct for a long time. And yeah, you want a system. You do not want to be like standing in line at the post office waiting to weigh and price out a package and whatnot for every time you want to mail it. So we found either the prepaid express post envelopes, depending on the size of your books and what you're shipping. If it's just a single book, those can be a good solution. So you can check out that. And also we ordered book packing boxes from Uline, which is a shipping supply company. And so you can they come flat, and you fold them up. It's like an origami, and then just, seal the edges. But they protect your books. They are adjustable in height. So if somebody buys one book, it kind of collapses down to the right height. Or if they buy, 3, then it packs nicely. And they come in lots of different sizes. But they were great for putting.
And what was the name of that company again?
Uline, Uline. And I'm going to make a note to put a link.
Thank you.
Website. So yeah, for anybody who's looking to do shipping of stuff, it can be really expensive to buy your packaging materials. And so I would highly recommend looking at the options and figuring out what's like going to be the most efficient pricing wise, and also keep your books protected while you're shipping them. Because they get punted around. Yeah, as anyone who's seen my Instagram post of my crushed proof from Amazon will know, the postal people are not always very gentle. Our postal person was trying to fit it in our mailbox instead of taking it to the package place, I guess. Oh, just like crammed it. So there are some impressive but also horrific photos. So yes, being very aware that they may get wet, they may get whatever, like stuff's going to happen en route to the customer. So that is a thing. Another issue is more just discoverability. So it's not so much like now that yes, people are definitely, I think, more willing to pay online when it's not, necessarily through a company that they know, as long as the payment processor is something that they know. Like as long as they're going to recognize PayPal, they recognize, Stripe or whatever. So, that's good. But it doesn't help people find you. So I think as long as it's an add-on and not an instead of, some people think, oh, well, I'll just sell direct and then I'll keep all the profits. Yeah, but people have to find you and then they have to be willing to buy from you. So, don't skip the other channels. We're not there yet. There is definitely a movement to encourage people to support creators by buying direct. So that is a good thing, but just making sure that you are really aware of what your terms of service are in the contracts that you've signed with your distributors as well, because some of the agreements do not allow for you to sell direct. So you need to make sure that if you have signed with KDP Select and you're part of Kindle Unlimited, you may not distribute your ebooks directly to people unless it is like an ARC copy, but you can't sell them directly, that you've signed an exclusive agreement. Some of the audiobook contracts are also like that. there's a new program Findaway Voices is set up in partnership with Shopify to set you up with your own audiobook store. And I'm actually part of the beta. So those stores are just launching right now. And I guess mine went live a couple days ago, but I haven't told anybody yet because we're just getting everything sorted out. But that is going to be an interesting experiment in direct sales because I get to keep, I want to say 80%.
Wow.
It's 70 or 80% of the retail price comes to me instead of usually the big part goes to the distributor. And then Findaway keeps a cut for managing the store because all I had to do was say, yeah, I would like it. And then I pay like $30 a month is the Shopify fee. So I pay for Shopify, but the Findaway team actually sets it up and adds all my products to it and does all that side of things. So yeah, it's a pretty cool program. I'll report back to you guys on how that all works. They're supposed to roll out publicly this fall for like taking on new authors. And
so are there a lot of audiobooks on Shopify, or it's so that you can sell directly from your website?
So Shopify is your store. Like, so now, here, maybe I'll just do a screen share because then you'll get an example of how it works when you're direct selling. And, okay, so there we go. So I've added an audiobooks tab on my website. So one of the challenges is how to integrate the pieces when it's a separate thing. But so now you can shop directly from the audiobook store, and it's a Shopify store, and it's a whole separate thing. But there's links back and forth between the two sites. So right now it's only available for purchasing in the US. But they're adding more support for more countries. Because what happens, people check out, they buy one of the stories through here, and then they have an app called AuthorsDirect that's free for all different platforms. So people can listen to their audiobooks directly through an app on their device.
So it hasn't got anything to do with Audible or...
Nope.
Mm.
No. Upload the files.
I like the price.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good price for an audiobook.
That's
yeah, well, my books are really short, so that's part of it is they can be a cheaper price because they're only like 2 to 2.5 hours for most of them. So.
And did you pay to have them narrated?
Yes. Yeah, through Findaway Voices. So that's these folk, and yeah, it's a great option. It's expensive if your books are really long, but it's about $150 per finished hour of audio, up to, you could pay like $600 an hour if you want to have one of the like
$600 an hour. Yeah.
elite narrators, right? But it's not per hour that they work on it, it's per finished hour. And a finished hour is approximately 9,000 words. So you can do, a quick set of math and figure out how much that would be. Now, if you're looking to audiobook a catalog of work and you've got like 7 full-length novels, you probably don't want to invest like $15,000 up front in audio. So ACX becomes a really good option because that's Amazon's audiobook production side, and you can set up your book with ACX and you can hire on with a royalty share arrangement with someone there. And so what happens is you post your project, anyone who's interested narrator-wise will get in touch with you and say, okay, we're willing to produce the audiobook for you for a split. So they keep 50% of royalties and you keep 50% of royalties for like 7-year period is the minimum kind of, well, 7 years is the minimum you're signing with Amazon. For the life of that book, they get 50%. If you ever want to buy your rights out, you can buy it back from them basically by paying out the rate you would have paid them up front to hire them in the first place. So it's a low risk. I mean, you're out nothing because it doesn't cost you anything to set it up. So yeah, and then you can take your royalties from that and you can put them into a pot for doing new books independently if you are getting lots of sales and you know that it's going well. But it is nice to start off if you're, it's a pretty big investment to do full length stuff paid up front. So unless they're selling like hotcakes, or like if you've got a series and you've done the first 4 through ACX and now you've got a couple new ones rolling out, well, if you've got enough money coming in from those, then you can reapply that money to making your own audio, so you own the rights forever. But it's up to you kind of how you want to handle it. For me,
do those split revenue deals last forever?
Yeah, unless you buy them out, they are forever.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing to keep in mind is who owns the content. So you don't actually own the audio recording when you go through ACX. So you can't take it and use pieces of it in other places or do other stuff with it. So that was another thing for me. I wanted to be able to give away an audiobook as a cookie for my list as a sample to kind of get people enticed into it. You can't do that if you don't pay for it up front. So, you may want to think about that too. If you have works of varied lengths, or maybe you have something shorter that is accessible as far as producing it that way, then you can do that. There's lots of ways to play with that.
Everything you've just said speaks to me about like Faraway Voices or Findaway Voices. Sounds like a better alternative, even though it's more expensive. I hate the thought that you have to give away the rights for 7 years. A lot happens in this business in 7 years.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. It's not so much giving away the rights for 7 years. It's that you're signing in a contract that your book will be available through. Right now, the only route to getting into iTunes, and there's one more which I forget, but there's the 3 big ones are bundled, and ACX is the only way into those, and you have to give them the rights to distribute your book for 7 years in order for that to happen. So, but the thing is, if you go through ACX, you can go exclusive or not exclusive. So it's like KDP Select or not, right? You can just be in KDP or you can be in Select. And it's the same thing with the audiobooks. If you go into ACX, you can choose exclusive or non-exclusive. If you choose exclusive, you're not allowed to sell them anywhere else. But ACX will list them with Audible. They'll be for sale on Amazon. They'll be for sale on iBooks or iTunes rather. And then there's one more place.
So you're saying if you go Findaway Voices, you can't get into those 3 vending?
You absolutely can, but you're still signing a 7-year agreement for that channel, no matter if you go through Findaway or the other ones. Okay. The difference is your files on all the other ones are not locked in for 7 years with Findaway. Because Findaway is the wide equivalent. Findaway is the draft to digital of audio, right? So if you put your files in Findaway, you can deactivate all of those other channels if you want. It's non-exclusive agreement, so you can actually do some channels through Findaway. If you find another audio distributor that covers different platforms that they don't cover, you can use those. So you're not locked down into an exclusive arrangement.
If you were to go through ACX and the revenue split deal for some years until you had established yourself as an author and you were making enough money to be able to invest it in, say, the Findaway route, could you not take down your ACX recorded audiobook and re-record it with a new vocal artist?
Not before 7 years, unless you paid out the artist that you used. That's the thing. You are committing to, because otherwise, it's not fair for that person who put in 100 hours to make your.
So you're stuck for 7 years no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay. But at that point, you could re-record the book through Findaway Voices, go indie with it, and then just pull the other one out of circulation.
Okay, so here's the thing. That would make no sense. If you liked your recording and it was selling well enough to be funding that, you would just pay out the narrator that you worked with in the first place. You can also pay up front through ACX. If you have the money, you can buy it out. Or let's say you're 3 years in, your book has sold like hotcakes, you've got enough banked that you could afford to pay for that narrator. You could just buy out the pre-existing files. And
So
then
what you're paying, in that case, what you're paying for isn't linked to your earnings. It's just their fee, basically. It's a fixed amount of money.
Yeah.
Based on the length of the recording. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that would be cheaper than going the other route, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be cheaper, but it would be more consistent.
Yeah, yeah.
And it would allow you to do something sooner. Like, you wouldn't be locked in for all 7 years. You're in the same way. Like, yeah.
You're still exclusively selling through ACX for 7 years, but you own all the rights and get all the profits.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, there's exclusive, not exclusive through ACX, but I'm not sure if, I think the royalty share option has to be exclusive, I believe. I'm about to find out. My first one that I'm going to do on both channels is ready as of like half an hour ago. So I'm setting up with ACX and recording that whole process over this next week or so.
It's worth trying one book anyway, no matter how long it is, because it's like you say, no skin, right? It's just
exactly.
expanding your format options.
Yeah, it helps with visibility a lot on Kindle. It helps with the click-throughs, and also they have a bounty program, which is so you can advertise that your book is free for Audible people who are just trying it out, right? Yeah. The first book or 2 books or whatever it is on Audible are free to download. And so if your book is the first book that people download on there, you get a bounty, they call it. So I believe that right now it's $75.
Okay.
It's pretty epic. Yeah. So anyway, if you're linking from your site to try out an audiobook over here, and if it's the first one on your Audible, it's free kind of thing, then you can make some serious bank that way.
Oh, so per user.
Yeah. Not
once. Oh, okay.
Yeah, not like one time ever, but like per person who's signing up through you. It's a pretty epic affiliate program. I don't know if they're like where they're at and if it's going to last forever, but at the moment, that is a thing.
Okay.
I think there's also like a $50 bounty, and one might be if you're exclusive and one if you're not. I don't really know how that works. So stay tuned.
And you get to audition the voice artists, right? And choose the one you like.
Yep. You post your project and then they come to you. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. And you just decide who you want to work with, and there you go.
Sounds like a thing I should add to my to-do list.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Did you see the note I left in I don't remember if I put it in all, but I put a link to my something I was working on this morning, which was refining my log line and blurb.
Yes.
And didn't know where or when the right time would be to get some feedback on that.
Yeah, so one option, anytime you've got like synopsis-y, blurby kind of stuff, is to submit it to the red pencil. So that is one option. If you want like all 3 of us to look at it, that's where you want to do it. So there's a form in the sidebar of the Perfect Your Pitch, I think. What did we call that again? Let's see. Prepare Your Pitch.
Okay.
In Prepare Your Pitch on the sidebar, there is a link to the red pencil form where you can submit a query or synopsis for review. And I haven't specifically talked about book blurbs, but that could definitely be a thing that goes there too.
Well, if you're not pitching, it's the equivalent, I guess.
Yeah, I mean the synopsis and stuff is all it's all good. So feel free to put that in there. I think we're happy to do that. And then also, if you want, I can just pull it up right now and we can just do a screen share and walk through a couple of pieces of it. I
didn't know whether you had anything else on the agenda for today. So.
Well, I did, but let me just double check. I'm thinking that the people who had asked for it are not necessarily here. Which limits my ability to cover their things in that way. Yeah, actually, the only other thing that was requested was to talk about newsletter stats, and I think you were actually one of the people who asked for that last week. Was to look at like the back end dashboard and how you see the data and how that works. But I think we probably have time for both. So
okay, because you also put the link up for the reader stats sites apps that I haven't investigated yet.
Oh, reader links.
Reader links and
and then the book report. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's do.
But yeah, a little.
Okay. Well, why don't we do the mailing list thing? Because there was a couple people who asked for that, and then it won't take a whole half hour. So then we can pull up the blurb and log line and take a quick look at that as well. Okay. Let's go to Mailerlite. We'll do this with a demo in front of us, which will be nice. Okay. So, we were talking about this in terms of what? In terms of list cleanliness and also in terms of knowing what people were clicking on. I'm trying to think what other questions we had.
Just, engagement,
Engagement, yeah. So let's look at campaigns. So my current newsletter just went out a couple hours ago. So it's not super useful. I mean, you can see a few things in here. If we go in, you can always come to your list of campaigns and then click on View Report.
So this is similar to MailChimp.
Yep, yeah, it's similar to
I've done that. I just haven't really done much since I switched over to Mailerlite.
Right. So it shows you a few interesting things. It'll show you how many got sent. It'll show you how many have been opened and how many were clicked. Means
if there's a link in the newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got a link in your newsletter and they click on it and it goes to somewhere, then that's here. It'll tell you how many people unsubscribed, how many spam complaints you had, and then how many bounces you had. Now, the more vigilant...
Now, what are those bounces?
Bounces are if it gets rejected by the receiver's mail server. So if you have too many links in it, sometimes that'll make it bounce. If you don't have a good sender reputation, you'll see higher bounce rates. If an address is just straight up wrong, you'll see that.
So if you get shoved into someone's spam folder, does that show as a soft bounce or not at all?
Nope. It just shows as a didn't open it.
Okay.
Yep, which is lame. There is, though, in the Newsletter Ninja book, there's some suggestions on how to do like a re-engagement campaign. Yep. If you're finding your open rates are dropping, there's a couple ways to manage that. And MailerLite actually has a special template for how to do a re-engagement campaign as well. They have a template built just for that. So if you ever get an email that's like, hey, we've noticed you haven't been like interacting with any of our content. Is that just because we're sending you the wrong stuff or you're just busy? Like, should we dump you basically? So yeah, you can set that up. All of my quitting emails are phrased as like breakup emails. So all my unsubscribe pages and everything. I don't know if you guys have done this yet, but it's really good to go in and on your unsubscribe pages to customize the content that's there. Because you can actually, it's a chance to reconvert people and it's also a chance to get them to follow you somewhere else. So like for me, when somebody hits unsubscribe, it says, are we breaking up? And then it's just a funny little commentary. And then it says, okay, if you still want to be friends, but only want to know about new releases, you can follow me on Amazon or BookBub. So it's a way to redirect people so that even if they're not on their list, they're still going to hear about your new release.
If they're just having an irritable, email overwhelm day, which happens, you don't necessarily lose touch with them completely.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one more chance to like sneak a little branding in, a little bit of your voice, and then, inviting them to come back anytime later. Like, it's just nice to leave that open so that, because some people are interesting about how they think that you're like paying attention to every name that comes off the newsletter. And so, if they don't realize how many people you have or, how this all works, because if you've been personalizing the emails to them, they feel like they know you and that you're going to be like, your feelings are going to be hurt if they unsubscribe. So it's just important to make it clear here, like, you get it, people are busy, it's fine. Like, not for them not to feel like they can't come back later is important. And then it'll tell you stats and stuff in here as well. And this tells you why people are unsubscribing. And this is really important.
Oh, that's good. That's more info than MailChimp.
Yeah, so you can see what they've clicked on and how many people in total have clicked on that. So that's not bad. Like, I've had I just dumped about 1,000 people off my list because they had never opened a single email. A lot of people sign up for freebies with an email that they don't ever check or interact with, other than to claim the freebie. And on BookFunnel, you claim the freebie, not even from your email. You claim the freebie from inside the window, so they never have to check that email. So there's a lot of those people.
But if you just remove them from your list, it doesn't show up as an unsubscribe?
No.
Okay.
And that's another good thing, because your unsubscribe rates impact your deliverability, right?
Yeah.
So you do want to
clean house.
Yeah, you do want to encourage people to unsubscribe. But so here's what we can do. They've added a super helpful cleanup inactive option. And if you click here, it'll tell you if there's people who have been on your list for more than 6 months and didn't open any of the emails you sent, then this is that list. And then you can send one attempt at a re-engagement email and then just unsubscribe them, just delete them, because you're paying for your number of subscribers, right? So that's not smart to keep them in there, and your deliverability percentages will go up. So one of the things we're gonna see in here on your campaigns, you can see the percentages of people who opened and clicked. So, you really wanna be over 20 to 25% if at all possible. And you can see, like, it varies depending on when you send it out. Mondays suck, just for the record. Don't do new releases on Mondays. It's, it was an experiment. I tried. I don't recommend it. But it's a good idea to take a look at your open rates and your click rates. Like, are people engaging? So if it's your review crew, you want to know that people are actually doing the things they're supposed to be doing. And if they're not, you need to figure out, why aren't they opening it? Is it because your onboarding wasn't strict enough in terms of getting that back and forth with people? Or is it because your subject lines suck? Or, what is it that you need to fix to make people be opening? Or is it because everybody's on there because they got a free thing and they really don't care what you have to say? Also possible. When you've done like a ton of promos. I did, because my open rates used to be like 80%. And then I did a ton of BookFunnel promos. And then they dropped down to like 30-40%, which is still quite high, but not where I'd like it to be. If I'm going to pay for everybody to be there, I really want to be like 75 to 80% open rates if possible. So, okay. So the next set of things you can learn here, the reading environment. And this is useful when you're trying to decide how to design your emails. Because for me, almost 73% of people are reading it on webmail. Only 25% are mobile and 1.3.5% desktop. So most
I don't understand webmail.
So that's
Is
like
webmail like me on my computer?
Well, so that's like Gmail, right? Is the webmail service. Yeah.
Well,
desktop would be like Macmail or Spark, or
doesn't webmail mean that they're actually logging in through their provider, like through their provider's account, rather than directly through their desktop? I don't know. I would hesitate to say yes to that. But I don't know. I just use Shaw, right? And so and I use a Mac. So in Mail, I can link my Gmail account, my Yahoo account, my Shaw account, they're all in there, and I can turn them on and off depending on if I want to filter them. But they're all directly available on my laptop. But if I'm having a problem, or if I'm, say, don't have access to my computer, I can just go online anywhere at the library or someone else's house. I can go to Shaw Webmail, log in, and access my email there. So I think of that as webmail as opposed to desktop or mobile. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and that's absolutely true. What I'm not sure about is when it comes to Gmail, how they're classifying when it's webmail or not webmail, depending on how people have integrated their email accounts with whatever device they're
I guess
using.
a lot more people just go through Google, and so they're actually using that interface.
Yeah, exactly. And that would count as webmail.
It's more integrated with other functions.
Yeah. So anyway, it will tell you roughly what reading environment people are in and what your top email clients are, which is helpful if you're looking at giving instructions to people about how not to get in the junk mail. Like if you're trying to explain to them how to put you on a safe sender list, you need instructions to be for Gmail and whatnot. So this just gives you a sense of how people are reading and where. And then this one, your link activity is really interesting because that shows you what people are actually engaging with. And it's also one of the ways you can tell when we were talking about read through and looking at how many people from your list are actually buying your books, like what the impact of your list is on your sales strategy or your launch strategy.
Yeah.
This is a really cool spot to look because it'll tell you how many people clicked. So I know that the Amazon.com link had 53 clicks. Well, somebody clicked 3 times because the unique clicks are the ones you want to look at, right?
Books to read numbers are high.
Yeah.
I would have thought the ratio would have been.
Well, so what's interesting here is it's because this book is the conclusion to an earlier story, and the earlier story is available for free on every channel. So I said, if you haven't read Silver Bells yet, you probably want to grab it from here. And I don't understand how anybody that's on my list could not have read that, because it's been linked in like 19 newsletters that they've got. Like it's linked in everything. They get it for free, and it's free on every single ebook channel. But it's just a good example that obviously there's 40 of these people who have never downloaded or read that book. So somehow either those emails didn't get delivered to them, or they just didn't happen to open it, or they weren't successful at downloading it from BookFunnel when I gave it away that way, months and months ago. So it's just a good lesson in making sure that there's some redundancy built in, just because there's a tendency to not want to like bug people with the same stuff. But I find that I'm still sending out links for books that have been out for like 2 years and 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is on that one, 4 years, and people are still haven't got it yet. So like it is worth it to make sure you capture that and kind of give people a chance to do that. And then amazon.co.uk is also a thing. You can look at, if we go to the actual link activity, this shows you all of the links that are in there and where people clicked them from. And it's interesting to see in here, if you view the email, there's like a heat map, and you can actually see which ones people were clicking on. So yeah, you because sometimes you'll put buy links in 2 places, and then you can compare. Was it the ones up here or the ones in the footer that people were clicking on, right?
Yeah. So they read a little further before they commit, obviously. Yeah.
It's an interesting sort of way for you to get feedback on how the design of your emails is working and where the placement of things is working as well. And you can save it as a PDF for your records if you're trying to like track that or, look at changes. Let's see. Subscriber activity. So this just tells you like how many people have opened it. This is everybody it went to. If you're looking for specific people or trying to make a segment or something, you can do that. That has people's email addresses in it, so I won't leave it up there for too long. Also, then this is an interesting one, opens by location. So this shows you where in the world people are reading from primarily.
The more or less the usual places. What is that? What is that in the middle?
The UK?
No, down off the Mediterranean there. What is that? Turkey? What is that? Further down, right there in the middle. Oh, Turkey.
Yep. India, Australia, South Africa.
Typically get the Commonwealth ones.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of interesting countries that will show up. We're in a different time zone, so there's a bit of ripple there. Yeah. But yeah.
I've got a few oddballs, weird Eastern European countries in the middle of Africa, and like, I don't know, one person somewhere speaks English and doing stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a sort of a quick and dirty tour. I mean, there's some interesting stuff just to look at from a growth perspective, looking at your subscriber numbers. I mean, this one actually goes down because I dumped a whole ton of people off. But it's good to see which forms are bringing people in as well. So if we look at the forms, I just made landing pages like yesterday, so there's nothing to see in there yet. But and I don't have any pop-ups that are running at the moment. Copy of free read underneath. So there's the free read underneath is the one off my website, which is horribly named. But so I know that there are 791 subscribers that have actually come directly from my website, which is helpful to know. Mm-hmm. And I just created one of the landing pages that's going to be the link in the back of front and back of all of my ebooks so that people can subscribe directly from a landing page instead of having to come to my website. Because if they're on a phone, it'll load quicker and you're more likely to capture addresses. So.
When you choose that option, the landing page sign up, as opposed to just a link, what do they see differently? You design the graphics?
Yeah, so the landing page looks like roughly this if you're on a phone.
Okay.
Right? And that's all that's there. They're not coming to my website. They're not anything else. When they sign up, they'll get an email that directs them it takes them through an onboarding process.
Right. And if you don't use a landing page, you just get a link to a form. What is that? How is that different?
Well, so if you're linking just to a form, it's not a lot different, but you really only have like your embedded forms option is when stuff is inside of a page on a website, right? So like the embedded form is on my website. They have to come and to go to the free reads page, and then they have to actually enter their info there. So you're just trying to save them clicks. So it doesn't look a lot different. Like this is the embedded form.
Okay.
It's just that they don't have to load your whole website and there's nowhere else for them to get distracted. The only thing they do off that link is put their name in.
So this form is on the website?
It's embedded, yeah.
Okay, so what about Facebook or other places where you might put a link to a sign-up form directly, even Linktree or something?
Yep, so the landing page is the best way usually to do that.
For all of those?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I haven't.
Or in like any contained form where all they can do is that, like a squeeze page or whatever. There's lots of different ways to build it and lots of different options.
So that's the point. They're not going to get distracted. It's just for signing up, and that's all they can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then you can see, it's a good idea to make I've got different landing pages from different places. So this is a back of the books one because I want to know going forward how many people are coming from the back of the book versus the audio store, because that's got a similar
look. Yeah.
similar look, similar whatever. I just copied the form, but it lets you, really get that granular data that's going to help you understand which channels are pulling people in. And if you're not getting signups, you need to look at why. Is it the copy you've used on your sign up form? Is it that, those people don't see value in whatever cookie you're giving away? There's a few different things it could be, but if you don't know who's coming from where, you can't analyze those things.
Yeah. So trying to think of all the different places. So you could have a separate one for Facebook, a separate one for Linktree from Instagram.
Yep.
You could have one for your books, one for your welcome page on your website.
Yeah. And if you do use Mailerlite, or not Mailerlite, if you do use reader links, there's also a whole thing around creating custom book links that are trackable through reader links as well. And you can use that.
I'm having a hard enough time with this much complexity.
Yeah, I mean, this is your starting place, but just if you're thinking of venturing into reader links land, you can always just check out. They have a little video to watch.
So is there someone that I can hire to do all this stuff, to set it up properly? And
so there are people who work as virtual assistants or author
know how to do all this.
Yeah, there are those people. I'm going to give you two cautions. One is, if you are not doing it, you're not understanding how your readers are responding to you. And I think there is a certain amount of loss that happens there.
I get that. It's not that I want to be detached from the process. It's just that I don't know what it is. I'm not as technologically comfortable as I used to be, and you explain all these things, and you know what I've accomplished in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I eventually get there, but it's like pulling teeth. It's hard, and I struggle, and I make mistakes, and I forget things, and it's like my process is not like your process. It's really messy.
Yeah.
So what I guess I'm looking for is not to delegate the whole thing, but to have someone doing it properly, setting it up properly, and kind of teaching me how, so that long term, both I'm learning and integrating that knowledge, and also knowing that I haven't screwed up somewhere, because there's so many places where I am capable of screwing this process up.
Well, so I think a couple things to keep in mind there. One, for sure, hire somebody to help you with the parts you're not sure about. The only thing is, you have to be able to tell them what you want. Otherwise, they screw it up and you don't even know, right? So that's one thing. I think just as long as you're aware, there's never somebody you can just turn it over to, because your process is going to be slightly different from anybody else's process in terms of what's going to work for you in your books. You can definitely get technical help if you're like, okay, what I need is, I need these 4 groups to manage my ARC readers and to get on these lists. I need a form that's got a version for these 5 social media platforms so I can track which one is effective. Like, as long as you know the outcome of what you want, then for sure there are people that can be hired to help with that.
Two things. I know, but I don't know. I mean, I hear you, I understand it, and it's going in one ear and most of it's falling right out the other ear. My brain can't hang on to this stuff. Yeah. So I know conceptually what I want, but I do not have the steel trap and the detailed understanding. It doesn't matter how many times I listen to you, it's not going to stick in my brain and make all that much sense until even when I've done it, I lose things. They just vanish from my head. So there's that. And secondly, I can't be the only author who can't deal with this stuff. I mean,
no, that's what I mean.
There aren't that many crystals out there.
No. There's tons of VAs and author assistants and admin assistants and services that manage author newsletters. There's tons of that stuff available. And for sure, if you want, if that's what you're looking for is a connection to one of those, you can look at the options. They are not cheap. And as long as that's okay, then
I don't know. I don't know what my choices are, because the alternative is very often overwhelming. And
Yeah.
I'm never convinced that I've done everything or that I've done it correctly or.
Yeah. And I guess we never do, right? Like, I sat down and made a list of all the things I wish I had done differently with my newsletter list yesterday. Like, it doesn't matter how much we know, it's constantly evolving. And it's really just about taking it in chunks of what the next thing you can do to fill a gap or whatever. So I think, it's good to look overall at the strategy of how you want it to work for you, and then think about the specific pieces that go in there. And if what you need is a one-on-one consult, then that can be arranged. If what you need is like a technical assistant who you can say, here's my content of what I want it to send out. I want it to go to these groups, and I want you to help me figure out how we get more people to open it when it gets there, right? Like there are those people. And
there's so much. There's so much. I don't even know what I don't know. I mean, from one moment to the next.
Yeah. And have you read the Newsletter Ninja book?
I'm working on it. I'm getting
working on
it.
Yeah. Perfect. So that one, it's really good just for an understanding of kind of overall stuff of how that works. And I did take notes when I read through it. So I'm just kind of working up like cheat sheet lessons from the books that I'm reading for you guys. So I will share those. And, I think just trying to focus on the next one small thing, not kind of getting totally overwhelmed by all the bits.
And that is generally my approach, because that's all I can handle is just doing whatever one thing I can kind of wrap my head around. But what I never seem to come out with is a really clear big picture of how all these things fit together or should be working together, and what balls I've dropped.
Right.
I mean, they're just gone.
So
I don't know how I write books. My brain does not work the way it used to.
Well, it thinks well for books. It's a different half of the brain, right? It's like a completely different side of things, and it's hard to switch back and forth if you're in writing mode as well. So there's that. Looking at what might be useful for people in terms of understanding some of this stuff going forward, and having like a practical tool that kind of helps do that. There are a few resources that I put to help plan your mailing list stuff in there, but I'm also teaching a bunch of courses this fall. So I'm happy to prepare some things if people have ideas about what the main sticking points might be, or what might be like a useful, helpful format of receiving some of this information. Do either of you have any suggestions around that?
Well, I mean, just flowing from my general sort of gripe, it's a list of objectives, like performance objectives, qualitative goals, and then what are the tools to do that and how they fit together. So it's linking what is it I'm trying to do and why with how do I achieve that, and what are all the little steps, and not just floating individually, but how do they make an overall sort of tactical plan that addresses those goals.
Okay.
I don't know. I think, I just know that when I listen to
I think that's really good.
They just, it's like makes sense for like a split second, and then it's just gone. So I need some kind of architecture to attach all the technical bits of advice to.
Yeah. And okay, so like the master roadmap document as a starting place. And then I'm just pulling up the newsletter stuff in here.
That's already in the resources?
Yeah. I don't know if you've explored that or not, but there's...
I will see what there is.
in the Connect with Readers section. So there's an author mailing list sign-up infographic and sample email content for every stage that goes with that infographic.
Yeah, I think I've got yours and 3 other people's as well.
Right, yeah.
So, I have a vague idea of how the whole sign-up sequence should work. But the stuff that you were talking about today, like different landing pages for different places and why you would want it to be a certain way and what you're trying to control,
Okay.
And what that information means when you get it, how to interpret it. I don't know.
Okay.
That's why I have this desperate urge to delegate the whole thing, because it's not just doing it, it's getting it. Managing it.
Okay. So maybe some kind of tool to help analyze effectiveness and gaps.
Yep. And above all of that, what are you trying to? I mean, not too pie in the sky, but in a concrete way, what are you trying to achieve? Like more signups, quality signups, and a better understanding of where you're reaching people and how you're connecting with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of take that and sort of break that down. These are the tools or these are the strategies you can use to achieve these sort of sub goals.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to convert it to something that's usable.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So not only what to do, but why. Somehow, if I don't have both parts, I can't move.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Okay.
And I'll keep working through the newsletter, Ninja, and the other resources. And
So the newsletter Ninja and the 6-figure author together are a very, I think, a good place to get the grounding in the 2 pieces, in the newsletter and how that integrates with sales. The message from the Newsletter Ninja book is your newsletter isn't about selling your stuff. Your newsletter is about connecting with your readers.
Yeah.
But your list is a tool for selling books, because the first 200 or so purchases of your book are what informs Amazon about your ideal reader audience. And so it populates your also bots, it populates the information on the back end. And if that's clear enough, if Amazon can say, well, based on these 200 people, we now know exactly who's going to buy this book, they will send out messages for you to the people they think will buy them. Heather just forwarded me one of mine yesterday that Amazon sent her a message saying you should buy these books by CJ Hunt. And it's because they identified her from her profile as somebody who would do that. So Anyway, it's just an interesting...
Yeah, okay. So, and 6-figure author, that's, what's his name?
Chris Fox.
Well, that's Chris Fox. There was somebody else with a similar titled book. So,
yeah, there's a few. David Cochran also has a Strangers to Superfans book, and that's kind of the triad in terms of, like, if you have to pick 3 books to get your strategy out of, I think that those 3 together give a very clear picture. And so what I would recommend...
Got 6-figure or not?
Yeah, and it's a quick read, like it's not super long. What I would recommend is read those 3, but just take notes for yourself as you go. And I'm just going to share I'm just going to share my Scrivener document because, like, I don't just keep all this crap in my head. I'm not magic. I know that sometimes from the front end, it just seems like I remember all the things. I know. But what I am is seriously organized. So, like, what I've started doing, and this is just, it's got too many things in here. 1 second. Don't want to blow anybody up. So what I've been doing is I've got like a master plan document. And
are these just document files?
This is just a Scrivener. Yeah, it's just a Scrivener thing. And I've got the research section. Whenever I read a book that's on one of these topics, I take notes as I go.
Wow.
And then if there's something that twigs for me, like if an idea comes up while I'm reading it and I think, ooh, I could use that way, or I could do that, or crap, I have absolutely no clue what they're talking about. I need to figure this out. Yeah. I put a note for myself and I highlight it. Like this note, enroll everything that is not a permafree in KU. Like once I knew this was a thing I did want to do.
Yeah.
Then I know there's actionables out of here, right? Mm-hmm. So this is like, as you're reading, and this was my second read. I don't usually do these notes on the first time around because I don't know what's important yet. I have no idea how any of it might relate. I just kind of read it to get a sense. And then I do a second read and I take notes on the way I think it might work with my process. And then I will actually go back into the specific section. Like these are my notes for myself on like, if I'm going to lay out an ebook in Vellum, these are the settings it's supposed to have for every single book in the series, because I don't remember that stuff from book to book at all. Like zero recollection. And so you're looking for consistency, you have to write down what you're doing or you won't have it to refer back to, or else you'll be opening other documents trying to figure it out. Like it's just so much to manage, much.
This is the missing piece, because I've either read or listened to webinars or taken courses, or I'm in the process of reading all of this stuff, but I can't seem to integrate it and put it into practice.
Right.
Like clearly because I haven't got this stage of the thing out.
So, Scrivener is a great place to keep this, and you can just do one document and easily collapse the folders. But I would highly recommend, like every podcast you're listening to, it's going to reference one of these other things, right? Mm-hmm. So, if I've got information about ARC teams that's coming from, if I listen to 3 podcasts, I will dump all of that into my notes and I'll have notes on each one. And I was keeping it in Asana, but it's just not working anymore. So I'm transitioning over to Scrivener as I do like a process spring cleaning right now. And it lets you keep the notes from stuff. And then if you're ever teaching a class later or somebody asks you like, how did you learn to do this thing? You have somewhere to refer back to.
Okay, good. You must spend a lot of time doing that. I don't know how you have time to write books.
Well, I kind of alternate. This was not a book writing week. This was an organizing the crap out of everything week. So, just identifying your priorities there. And if you track what you're doing while you're doing it, you don't have to do it again. And so then you have more time for writing and for other things because you're not revisiting the same stuff over and over again. So, yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you.
Hopefully that'll help fill in the gap for the missing links. And I will, I'm using this for me to help know what to make tutorials for you guys on as well. So,
but just because it doesn't matter how many tutorials I watch, it's still all swimming in this chaotic fashion in my head. And then I lose it. So something like that for me, that's customized to me.
Yeah.
Perfect. Would be good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies. And I am seeing Eileen has arrived for our next meeting.
Oh, okay. So I'll put my my blurb in the other place.
Yeah, submit the red pencil form right away, and then we'll slot you into the next recording one. That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Marianne. Thanks, Joanne. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Crystal. Bye.